So welcome back to Orchid House. I'm Olivier in Fort Lauderdale, and I'm very proud to show you this beautiful Cycnoches William Clark. That's a real waterfall. And so today the subject is basically the culture of these guys, Cycnoches or Cycnoches, there's two pronunciations, and then the Mormodes, which is very similar. So if you know Catasetums, and I'll post a link to my Catasetum culture video, it's basically grown the same way, but there's a few differences. So first of all, between these guys, so this is a Cycnoches, and so they have very long and skinny bulb. That's what they do. They also, unlike a Catasetum, where a very old Catasetum can have 20 back bulbs, these guys, after 2 years, the bulb rots no matter what you do, because that's what they do in nature. So you never have a Cycnoches with many, many bulbs. Another one here, this is Cooperi, which is about to bloom. And again, you see it's a skinny, long bulb. And this one has 2 back bulbs. One is already rotten, and the other one is already on its way out. It has no impact on this. This is not rotting. This is nice and solid. I'm probably going to stake it to keep it a little bit more stable. But then the Mormodes, they are different. They have a wider base and they look more like a fan. This one is actually about to bloom. And both the Cycnoches and the Mormodes can bloom anywhere up the bulb. They hardly ever bloom from the base. Another one here, so yeah, you see it's another Mormodes. So again, it more looks like a fan. And these are smaller plants typically. They bloom later too. They usually bloom on leafless bulbs, kind of in the midst of the winter. And then you have a cross between both, and then a cross is called a Cycnodes. And so these have basically the same shape as the Mormodes, but they are much plumper, much bigger. And that's a match made in heaven. Typically, Cycnodes are highly desirable plants. So now, how do you grow these guys? So I've learned to grow them in, well, let me see, it's going to be easier to show there. So in tree fern fiber. So the tree fern fiber, this is wet right now. When it's dry, it's a light brown. Tree fern fiber, first of all, you don't have to repot for many years, because usually we repot these guys every year. It's an aerated medium. So the problem with both Cycnoches and Mormodes is that they rot very easily. If you're new to them, the Mormodes don't even try, or at least don't try the species, try a hybrid, which are a little easier to grow. Same thing for the Cycnoches. They love to rot, so you have to be careful. Since I've been using tree fern fiber, I've hardly had any rot on these guys, except the typical issue that I showed you with the Cycnoches, because their bulbs don't last forever. But so that's the medium that I would recommend, because you avoid that issue of rotting. So the life cycle of these guys is identical to the Catasetum. They go dormant, they start growing, then they are in growing mode during the growing season, then the leaves fall off, they turn yellow, and they go back to dormancy. So that's identical. The difference, the Catasetum, personally, I do not water them at all during dormancy. So once the leaves have fallen off, that's it. I set them aside in an area which is sheltered from the rain, and I don't touch them. These guys, they tend to shrivel, especially the Mormodes, more so than the Cycnoches. If they shrivel too much during the winter, you can give them one good soaking a month, and then you let them get dry again and don't touch them for a while. But you have to monitor them a little bit more than your Catasetums. Then they start having a new growth, and during that time you absolutely do not water at all, because these new growths are very rot prone. And so you wait until the growth gets 3 to 5 inches tall and has 3 to 5 inches long roots. That's when you start watering. So there's no difference there with the Catasetums. And then growing season, they're supposed to stay wet at all times. These ones, unlike the Catasetums, I let them get dry, and then I soak them real good. So you alternate wet and dry cycle. The dry cycle is extremely short, and the wet cycle you really soak them real hard. But alongside the use of tree fern fiber, I believe that letting them get dry helps cope with the issue of rot. And you see, I mean, these guys, this is a very successful crop. This is a huge bulb. Here I have my Cycnodes Taiwan Gold, 1, 2, sorry, yeah, 3, these very big bulbs. They love it. I have another one here, which is a more complex, and you see the tree fern fiber here is approaching dryness. It's a light brown color, but that's again a very strong, this is another Cycnodes, a very strong bulb. So these plants are healthy, and I mean, I credit the tree fern fiber and the alternation of wet and dry cycles. When the leaves are turning yellow, you fertilize a lot when they are in growing mode, more than any other orchid. And then when the leaves start yellowing, you basically stop fertilizing and the watering is reduced in half. The Cycnoches will typically bloom either with leaves or without leaves. The Mormodes almost always without leaves, and the Cycnodes kind of in between, but they tend to grow without the leaves. They tend to bloom, sorry, without the leaves. The blooming cycle is usually on leafless bulbs, and then they go dormant. So it's basically, it's a Catasetum. The only difference, again, you may have to water them during the winter months, once a month, a good soaking if they shrivel too much, and then more so wet and dry cycle than the typical Catasetums. Other from that is the same life cycle. And then you have this profusion of flowers. It's absolutely stunning. The Cycnoches, to me, is one of the most beautiful orchids there are. They are like Catasetum. They have male and female, which is an annoyance, except that in this case the female flowers are pretty. On the Catasetum side, the female flowers are not very popular, but these guys are. So that's it for today. I thank you very much for tuning in, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.